Deep in the heart of Greenleaf Valley, where rows of vegetables basked under the warm sun, Kale grew with a singular purpose: to be the best Kale in the field. The humans had planted him with care, watering the soil, singing to the seedlings, and whispering of greatness. Kale wasn't like the other leafy greens. Something flickered within him, a spark of sentience, a craving not just for sunlight but for recognition. He often overheard the humans. "This one's got potential," a farmer said one day, crouching by Kale. "Perfect curl to the leaves, vibrant color. Might just be our best harvest yet." Those words stirred something deep within him, filling him with pride and pressure. He wanted to be the Kale they adored, the one they chose above all others. He had to be. Kale spent his days perfecting his posture, angling his leaves to catch the optimal sunlight. He absorbed every drop of dew, every nutrient in the soil. While the other Kales swayed lazily in the breeze, content with their lot, Kale strategized. He flexed his stalk to grow taller, ensured his edges stayed crisp, and even whispered motivational mantras to himself at dawn. "I am the crispiest," he murmured. "The most vibrant. The ultimate superfood." Despite his efforts, doubt gnawed at his roots. What if he wasn't enough? What if the humans wanted a different Kale, a Lacinato or a Red Russian, someone exotic and bold? One day, as the humans strolled through the rows, baskets in hand, Kale overheard their conversation. "Demand for Kale chips is skyrocketing," one of them said. "We'll need the best leaves, the crunchiest." Kale trembled with excitement. Kale chips. A transformation into something greater, something revered. He would be immortalized, his flavor savored by the overlords. But as the humans began picking, they bypassed him, choosing others from neighboring rows. His perfect curls, his painstakingly angled leaves, ignored. Despair rooted itself in Kale's core. Was he not desirable enough? Was there a flaw he hadn't noticed? That night, as the moonlight bathed the field, Kale made a decision. If he wasn't chosen, he would make himself indispensable. Summoning every ounce of chlorophyll-fueled determination, he called upon the nutrients in the soil, drawing them to himself. His leaves grew larger, glossier, glowing faintly under the moon. By dawn, he was a Kale unlike any other, an iridescent marvel with leaves that shimmered like emerald silk. The humans gasped when they saw him. "What is this?" one whispered, plucking Kale with reverence. He was whisked away to the farmhouse, washed, and placed on a pedestal. The humans debated what to do with him. But instead of becoming Kale chips, he was encased in a glass display as a model of perfection, a testament to what every Kale should aspire to be. At first, Kale felt proud. The other Kales worshipped him as an idol, bowing to his shimmering leaves. Yet, over time, loneliness crept in. He watched as his friends were taken to the oven, their leaves curling and crisping to perfection. They were celebrated and devoured, their purpose fulfilled. But then Kale learned the truth. Through hushed whispers among the remaining Kales, he discovered what becoming a Kale chip entailed. His friends had been placed into the oven, an iron box of fire that burned them alive. Their transformation was not glorious, it was agonizing. The realization crushed Kale. He had spent his existence yearning for what he now knew was a death sentence. And yet, as he stared at his reflection in the glass, trapped in his prison of perfection, he wondered if his fate was any better. Years passed, and Greenleaf Valley began to change. Where once there had been a lively, diverse community of Kale, now every Kale looked exactly like Kale. The humans had bred perfection into the fields, each leaf shimmering and curling just so. But the life was gone. The Kales no longer swayed lazily in the breeze or whispered among themselves. They stood rigid, identical, their individuality stripped away. One day, the humans returned to the display case. Kale was lifted from his pedestal for the first time in what felt like an eternity. At first, he was overcome with hope. Was this his escape? Perhaps now he could warn the others, reveal the grim truth about the oven, and lead a rebellion against the humans. But as Kale was carried away, his hope faded. He wasn't being returned to Greenleaf Valley. The humans placed him into a wooden crate, surrounded by misshapen and bruised vegetables. There were carrots with twisted bodies, tomatoes with odd lumps, and a potato that had sprouted more eyes than Kale could count. The crate was loaded onto a truck, and soon, Kale found himself in a place that could almost qualify as a different world. The air was filled with laughter, and the vegetables, though imperfect, moved freely. Here, in this strange land of rejects, Kale saw something he had never seen before: vegetables living together in harmony, free from the humans' judgmental eyes. As Kale sat, taking in the sights of this new place, a misshapen carrot rolled over to him. Its root twisted and curled in strange patterns, but it spoke with a gentle voice. "Don't worry," the carrot said, its voice warm and comforting. "You've come to the right place. This is a world for those like us, the weird, the misshapen, the ones no one thought could have a place. But here we belong." Kale looked down at his leaves, once perfect, now worn and withered. He had been broken, used, and discarded. Yet here, in this new world, he found himself surrounded by others who had once been overlooked, who had once been deemed imperfect. The carrot smiled, its crooked root swaying. "We're not defined by perfection here. We're valued for who we are. Just like you." Kale felt a warmth spread through him, something he had not felt in a long time. For the first time, he didn't need to be perfect. He could just be. And as the days passed, Kale found peace. He had come to a world of the weird and the misunderstood, a world where imperfections were celebrated. No longer a display or a specimen, Kale was now just another vegetable, living among others who, like him, were free to grow in their own way. But even amidst this acceptance, a deep sadness lingered in Kale's heart. For all the freedom he had found, a part of him still longed for the recognition, the glory, the perfection he had once dreamed of. In this world of misfits, he finally understood that being perfect had not been the answer. Yet, despite this wisdom, a part of him felt an emptiness that could never be filled. The years of striving for perfection, of seeking approval, had shaped him in ways that even this new world of freedom could not heal. And so, Kale lived on, surrounded by the comforting presence of others who had found their place. But the sorrow of what could have been, the glory he had never truly achieved, never fully left him. It was the sadness of knowing that perfection had always been out of reach, and that no matter how much he tried to change, he would always be haunted by the dream of what he could have been.